countries to go to the moon in this decade and do the other thing, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
The space race was the spark of a new industry. In the 1950s, the United States and Soviet Union began to rapidly expand space travels in a battle to advance the farthest and control Earth's orbit for military power. The Soviet Union started the space race with their launch of Sputnik 1. This $750,000 satellite the size of a tire was the first man-made object in space. The only accomplishments the Soviets had during the race was sending the first man and satellite into orbit, although, during return of the manned flight, the astronaut ejected from his cockpit, therefore ditching the spacecraft during mission. The flight was not considered a manned mission because of these actions, yet the Soviet oligarchy lied about the incident for 3 decades.
And that the first fully instrumented satellite would be launched in March of 1958.
Americans were the first to launch the first manned mission, sent humans the farthest distance, and also the first and only nation to land on the moon 5 times. The United States also had far less astronaut fatalities than Soviets. This could be credited to the less precautions and safety equipment used to speed up building productions. This reflected in every fatal mission of the Soviet. Also, the average Soviet spacecraft contained only 2/3 of the instruments aboard the average American spacecraft.
Lininger had endured a near collision with a cargo ship, as well as an ongoing litany of mechanical and electrical breakdowns, including an intense fire.
After the race, the Soviets decreased space productions while the American Space Administration slowly received more funding. This was followed by the collapse of the Soviet Union during the 20th century. The change in Russian government cut funding for the space shuttle and future lunar landings. While the United States hasn't gone to the moon since the 60s, their shuttle program advanced to launch 135 space shuttles. Today, the National Aeronautics Space Administration, NASA, is 7.5 times larger than the Russian Space Administration.
The Apollo spacecraft was the first big effort to miniaturize a computer, to produce a microcomputer. And you took a computer on the lunar module, that thing had less processing power than a solar-powered calculator does today. So the computing power of our information technology was much, much greater, particularly when you added in, those dozen laptops that we used around the vehicle when we were on orbit. But a lot of the mechanical systems, the way in which we use star trackers to determine where our inertial position, the oxygen, liquid hydrogen technology that we use to develop electricity through fuel cells was used that way in Apollo. Apollo had very similar electrical bus configuration. Physics didn't change between the year NASA was established, 1958, and when I flew in 1998. So the technology was a bit more advanced, but the idea of getting to orbit and getting back safely was all very similar. So I wouldn't characterize any reluctance that I'd have with flying the technology from back then. And, you know, what we were flying back then was generally pretty reliable, and it got us to the moon. And unlike our laptops here, the computers on the space shuttle, the mission computers on the space shuttle, and there were 5 of them, 5 general purpose computers, had the most stable software code that has ever been written. And they were extremely reliable. They could operate in extreme environments of heat. They could operate in zero gravity. They could operate without any atmospheric pressure. So they were very, very robust, well-built, hardened machines. And they were not the kind of machines that we would have to reboot every day, you know, to keep them operating properly.
T-minus 13 seconds. 10. 9, 8, 7, 6. We have a go. Start. 4, 3, 2, 1. We have booster ignition and liftoff of the Space Shuttle Endeavour, continuing the union of U.S. and Russian space endeavors.
Drop like an earthquake.